Hey folks, this is Kalani. We have some huge class changes to go over this week, with some classes seeing up to 300% buffs for certain abilities, which is kinda crazy, and these may be our last updates before the holiday break. The midnight pre-patch will be arriving soon, which includes all of the huge class overhauls coming in midnight, as well as the big updates to add-ons, which will probably break quite a lot of them, but the dev team have actually backtracked even further on their new add-on restrictions, so we'll go over those new details. Tier sets are also going to be basically removed for the rest of the season, and the new Night Elf and Blood Elf housing options are finally available to preview. There's a lot to talk about, so let's break it all down in this week's WoW News video. Now before we jump in, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss another video. Let's kick things off with this week's round of class changes, buffs and nerfs. There are some huge balance adjustments this week, and all of these changes are gonna go live very soon. For Demon Hunters, there are quite a few buffs for the Annihilator hero talent tree for Vengeance. Voidfall meteor damage is increased by 20%, Meteoric Rise now increases Fell Devastation's damage by 25%, Celestial Echoes now increases fracture damage by 30%, and Dark Matter meteor shower damage is increased by 20%. For Aldraki Reaver, Reaver's glaive damage was reduced by 26%, Fury of the Aldraki damage was nerfed by 13%, Warblade's Hunger saw a 25% nerf, and Wounded Quarry was reduced to 15% of physical damage. And then for Fellscarred, Havoc's Burning Blades was increased to 35% of ability damage. For Havoc specifically, they'll see a 10% buff to all damage across the board. Glaive Tempest now activates on 3 targets, down from 4. Glaive Tempest Fury cost was reduced to 25, but its damage was also reduced by 25%. For Vengeance, Soul Fragments will now heal for 6% of recent damage, down from 7%, and Thick Skin now increases armor by 150%, up from 130%. Evokers are up next with some updates for Preservation. They're going to see a 6% healing nerf across the board, which definitely isn't ideal, but on top of that, Emerald Blossom healing was nerfed by 15%. Living Flame damage and healing was increased by 25%, Disintegrate damage saw a 25% buff, Fire Breath damage is up 25%, and Reverberations was buffed up to an additional 60% of healing, up from 30%. Moving on, we come to the Paladins, and Protection has quite a few buffs. Guardian of Ancient Kings has its cooldown significantly reduced from 300 seconds to 180, so 5 minutes down to 3 minutes. Ardent Defender cooldown was reduced to 90 seconds, so that got half a minute cut off as well. Word of Glory healing saw a massive 100% buff. Aegis of Light now increases armor by 55%, up from 20%. Armor granted from Shield of the Righteous was increased by 30%. Light of the Titans was buffed up to an additional 40% healing, up from 20%, and then Solus causes Consecration to heal for 300% of its damage done, up from 100%. So Prop Paladins should be quite a bit tankier, have more self-heals, and have far more access to their major defensive cooldowns. Warlocks are up next, and they have a whole bunch of buffs to look forward to. For Hellcaller, Blackened Soul damage is increased by 30%, Mark of Xavius increases Agony damage by 30%, up from 20%, and Through the Fellvine now increases Unstable Affliction or Chaos Bolt damage by 8%, up from 4%. And then there's a 20% damage boost for Wither for Destruction specifically. For Soul Harvester, Demonic Soul damage is up 100%, Wicked Reaping saw a 150% buff, and Soul Anathema damage was increased by 50%. For Affliction specifically, Call the Weak was updated to reduce the cooldown of Dark Harvest by a little bit less. Dark Harvest damage was increased by 300%. Wrath of Nethresa's Summon Desperate Soul damage is up 100%. Shadowbolt and Drain Soul damage saw a 60% buff. Unstable Affliction damage was buffed by 15%. Agony damage is up 30%. Malefic Grasp damage was increased by 150%. Summon Dark Glare damage is up 100%. And Corruption damage saw a 50% buff. So a lot of very big buffs for Affliction this week. For Demonology, Hellbent Commander has been reduced to a 1% bonus for each demon you control. Dominion of Argus Antoran Jailer damage was reduced by 20%, and Antora Inquisitor damage was increased by 100%. Summon Doomguard damage is down 25%, Wild Imp damage was reduced by 10%, and Hand of Gul'dan damage saw a 20% nerf. And then Destruction wasn't left out. Chaos Bolt damage was buffed by 25%, Echo of Sargeras damage is up 150%, Overfiend damage saw a 30% 20% buff, Incinerate damage is up 20%, Conflagrate damage saw a 20% buff as well, and Shadow Burn saw a huge 100% damage increase. And then last but not least, we come to the warriors. For Slayer, Opportunist's damage and crit damage of your next overpower was reduced down to 10% for both Arms and Fury. For Arms specifically, Crushing Combo has been updated to cause Colossus Smash to not trigger a cooldown on your next 3 cleaves. Fury has seen some more changes, and their talent tree is being shifted around quite a bit to open up more build options. Cruelty has been updated to now buff both Bloodthirst and Raging Blow for a lower amount. Improved Bloodthirst was renamed to Spite and has also been updated to buff Bloodthirst and Raging Blow for less damage each, and Blood Craze was updated as well. That's all for this week's round of class changes for the Midnight pre-patch, which is rapidly approaching. The pre-patch goes live on January 20th, so that's just under a month away at this point, but with the holidays squeezed in there, we'll probably only get 2 more good weeks of updates before the pre-patch is here, which leaves very little room for further class balance updates or changes. Now, with how massive some of these class overhauls are, it's going to have quite a lot of knock-on effects for the rest of the game. One specific feature that usually gets really messed up with big class changes are tier set bonuses. When tier sets interact with passives or talents that no longer exist, things can get a bit weird. Well, the dev team has a plan. Instead of redesigning set bonuses or having some broken set bonuses and some crazy overpowered ones, they're just going to replace them all. When the pre-patch hits live servers, every single tier set bonus in the War Within will be replaced with a simple damage or healing boost. So every 2 set bonus will increase damage or healing by 6% depending on your specialization, and every 4 set bonus will increase damage or healing by 10%. Not particularly interesting, but we won't be using them for much longer, and I would rather have the dev team focus on Midnight, new content, and a smooth expansion launch, rather than trying to chase around set bonuses because they keep breaking. So we won't have any real set bonuses to use for the month or so leading up to the expansion launch, which should also make it quite a bit easier to get used to the class changes coming our way. That's not all that's coming in the pre-patch on January 20th. We'll also be able to play the new Devourer Demon Hunter specialization, which is a lot of fun from what I've played on the beta, and it may end up being very powerful due to the combination of mobility and ranged combat. We'll be able to make Void Elf Demon Hunters, so you'll be able to play that new race class combo in the pre-patch as well. This is also when the big stat squish will come through, which will take a little bit of getting used to, but basically all numbers in the game will be reduced, including our health, monster health, damage dealt on both sides, item levels, all of it. All of it will be much lower than what we're used to in the War Within. We'll see the big transmog overhaul introduced in the pre-patch as well, which includes new outfits and situation options, which are a lot of fun to tinker around with, and then we'll also have a big pre-expansion event that takes place in the Twilight Highlands, with new daily activities, world quests, weekly quests, as well as new rewards and gear catch-up mechanics. And just in case you still had some alts left to level up after all these events we've had up until now, the Winds of Mysterious Fortune event will blow back into town as well. We'll have a dedicated video that dives a bit deeper into the pre-patch, everything that's included, and how the pre-expansion event works, so stay tuned for that. Pre-patch is also when we'll get to see the massive add-on changes introduced, so prepare to play without your favourite add-ons for at least a little while until everything gets updated and smoothed out. Hopefully things will be in a good place by the time the expansion launches in March, but curiously the dev team has been reducing their restrictions more and more the closer we get to midnight. This week, certain spells were whitelisted to give add-ons access to their information. This includes Maelstrom Weapon for Enhancement Shamans and Soul Fragments for Devourer Demon Hunters, so you should be able to keep track of those buffs and stacks much easier and have more options for creating custom UI elements for them. It also includes being able to track combat resurrections easier and skyriding charges, so I guess the dev team realizes that the base UI doesn't display enough information for certain buffs or abilities, and they're giving add-ons access to those. There are also various other add-on changes being worked on, including whitelisting more spells, so if there's something you think needs extra help to track properly, make sure your voices are heard on the forums. There's also some old API cleanup being worked on, and a lot more cast bar stuff. So this is an ever-changing field right now. I believe most changes will be included for the 12.0 pre-patch, with any future updates coming through with the expansion launch. So add-ons could actually break and have functionality removed, or have access to more functionality between those two updates. So I really don't envy the add-on authors or developers right now, and I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see major add-on updates come through until after the expansion launches, with all of the updates in place. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see how it all goes. How do you feel about the add-on changes now that we're so close to the pre-patch? Let me know what you think in the comments section below. And then to round out this week's video, the Night Elf and Blood Elf architecture styles were finally enabled on the beta, and they do change things up quite a bit. The Horde will have the Blood Elf option, which looks amazing in my opinion. It's pretty much what you would expect from Blood Elf style buildings, but they have so many options to add in different types of spires and towers, and this is just the base level of the house, by the way. You can get 2 tiers larger than this one, and you can already add so many things and make it look really cool. I think the Blood Elf options will look particularly good for all of the floating house styles that I've seen across the internet since that was officially supported. Over on the Alliance side, you'll have the Night Elf housing option. If you've been playing for a while, you probably know exactly what this is going to look like. Lots of wood themes and options, those typical branch-like arches, and you have quite a few options for windows and towers to add onto the top of your house. I don't think it's quite as good as the Blood Elf option, but to be fair, I do think the human housing option was already very good and quite a bit better than the Orc one. I'm very interested to see what the dev team will add in after these options. Will they just keep adding new windows or exterior customization options to these 2 housing styles, or will we eventually see dwarf architectures or Tauren or undead architecture? There's so much potential here, but we'll probably have to wait quite a while before any new architecture options become available. Both the Night Elf and Blood Elf style options will be available with the expansion launch, so we'll have to wait until March by the looks of things, but that does give the dev team a little bit more time to cook to make sure these architecture options look as good as they can. But that's all of the updates we have so far, so that's it for this week's WoW news video. How do you feel about the huge class overhauls coming in midnight? Are there any class changes that you're really looking forward to, or maybe some that you're really dreading? Leave all your thoughts in the comment section below. A big thank you to all of our supporters over on Patreon and to all of our members here on YouTube. You can see the names floating by on screen. If you're interested in supporting the channel, you can find links in the description or click the join button just below the video. If you enjoyed the video or found it useful in any way, make sure to subscribe and ring that notification bell so you're always kept up to date. Thanks for watching, folks. Good luck and have fun, and as always, I will see you next time.